Welcome to the Myth of the Fallen Ones. I am Elnard El Kasmanai, your host. Here, we walk the path between shadow and light, tracing the lost wisdom of alchemy, the hidden language of symbols, and the psychology of the soul revealed through the work of Carl Jung. These are the echoes of the ancient ones, the myths that fell into time, now rising again through us. If this path calls to you, share this light and take part in the great work of remembering. This work is a guided passage through the great work of the soul. We begin at the flame's first question, what am I? Then walk the temples of ancient alchemy where matter and spirit mirror one another. With Jung as our witness, we enter the furnace within, shadow and persona, anima and animus, reconciled by honest heat. Finally, we cross the night bridge of dreams, where symbols speak and become practice. As above, so below. As within, so without. The fire is lit. Step in. Chapter 1. The invocation, the flame awakens. In the beginning was fire, and fire remembered everything that ever was. Before the word, before the shape, before the sound, a spark trembled in the abyss and called itself becoming. From that single pulse came stars, seas, breath. From that breath came the first whisper of a question. What am I? Every creature born since carries that whisper. Every cell burns with the same riddle. It is the oldest inheritance, the memory of the flame searching for its own reflection. You have felt it. The restlessness that will not be soothed by pleasure or success. The yearning that gnaws even in triumph. That is not failure. It is the fire remembering itself through you. The ancients called this hunger the great work, the labor of turning the dull lead of confusion into the shining gold of understanding. They called it alchemy, but what they sought was not in mines or crucibles. It lived behind the ribs, where longing meets awareness and becomes transformation. Hear me now, traveler of shadow and light. You were not born to sleep in ignorance. You were not born to bow to idols of comfort. You were forged to awaken, to stand inside the furnace and recognize your own heat. The great work does not begin in mastery. It begins in surrender. When you admit that the outer world cannot feed the inner hunger, the fire within stirs. It whispers a single command. Transmute. Transmute fear into vigilance, transmute pain into wisdom, transmute habit into attention, transmute despair into the courage to look again. The soul is a crucible. Everything you have run from waits there. Your forgotten grief, your denied desire, your unlived life, all must enter the heat. The furnace is merciless only to the false, to the true it is liberation. Do not imagine the flame as punishment. It is remembrance. It consumes what you are not, so that what you have always been may stand revealed. Transformation is not change, it is unveiling. Gold does not become gold, it merely sheds what is not gold. So too the spirit. Look into your own darkness until it yields light. There is no other gate. Every saint, every sage, every scientist of the soul has walked through that same black door. You must walk it too. When the fire first touches you, you will tremble. Good. Trembling is proof of life. When the structures of certainty begin to melt, do not rush to rebuild them. Let the molten self flow where it must. Form will return in time, but it will be truer, cleaner, aligned. Understand this. Creation itself is an act of alchemy. From nothing came something. From chaos came cosmos. From silence, sound. And so it is within you. Every time you bring clarity from confusion, every time you turn pain into art or kindness, you repeat the gesture of Genesis. Therefore, when sorrow burns, do not flee it. Ask it. What are you refining in me? When joy floods, do not cling. Ask it. What are you revealing? Both are flames of the same fire. To worship one and reject the other is to cripple the work. You have entered the temple of transmutation. The altar is your own awareness. The offering is your honesty. The priest is silence. The God is the flame that says, I am. So breathe. Breathe as one who tends sacred fire. Each inhale, fuel. Each exhale, surrender. Let the rhythm of your breathing align with the rhythm of creation. With every cycle, the fire brightens, and you, its keeper, remember your lineage, child of dust and star, servant of transformation, heir to the mystery that began before time. Now, mark this moment with a vow, not a vow made to impress the world, but a vow you will keep in the dark when no one sees. I will tend the flame. I will tell the truth. I will trade my comforts for clarity when clarity calls. Write it upon your breath. On the inhale, receive. On the exhale, release. Receive what is real, release what is rotten. Receive instruction, release resistance. Receive the weight of your life, release the need to be more than you are. Remember the law the tablet carried across ages. As above, so below. As within, so without. If you seek heaven, mirror it. If you desire peace, become it. The world is not convinced by arguments. It is convinced by presence. Be the presence that proves the principle. There is a guardian at every threshold. It bears the face you fear most, your own. It will ask for a price you cannot pay with coin. Your excuses, your appetites, your borrowed identities, give them, open your hands and let the trinkets fall. You will not become less without them. You will become precise. Do not wait for courage to arrive fully clothed. Begin in small bravery. Keep a promise. Finish a task you avoid. Speak one clean sentence where you once performed 1,000. Small braveries accumulate like gold dust. In time they weigh like ingots. When the mind races, call it to heal with a single practice. Name what is here. Name the sensation in the chest, the flavor of the air, the mood in the room. Naming is the alchemist's first operation, separation. To separate is to see what is actually present, and what is present can be purified. Honor the body. It is not an obstacle to spirit, it is spirit's instrument. Stand as if a crown rests upon your skull. Walk as if the earth is a guest beneath your feet. Eat as if you are feeding an altar. Sleep as if you are entering a temple. In such gestures the ordinary brightens and the work continues without strain. If you must have a sign, take this as a sign. You are hearing these words. If you must have permission, take this as permission. Begin. Not tomorrow and not when you feel ready. Begin with what is in your hands. Begin with what is on your tongue. Begin with what is in your heart asking to be said. Make yourself a simple rule. Where there is heat, I will look. Where there is pain, I will listen. Where there is beauty, I will praise. Where there is confusion, I will stand still until the water clears. And when doubt returns, as it will, answer it gently. You are a weather, not a verdict. Pass through me and be done. The flame remains. Now take one step. Let the heel meet the ground like a seal pressed into wax. Let the breath follow. Let the eyes soften. Carry the ember forward. The invocation is not a spectacle. It is a quiet rearrangement of allegiance. From this breath onward you serve what is true. From this breath onward you measure success by the light you keep. From this breath onward the fire is your teacher, and you are its faithful apprentice. The great work begins when you stop running from your own flame. The great work begins now. Chapter 2. The Ancient Art of Alchemy. In the age when God still walked among men and wisdom was sung rather than written, a whisper spread through the temples of the earth. Matter is alive. From that whisper was born alchemy, the art of transmutation, the first marriage of heaven and earth. The word itself comes from Chem, the black land of Egypt, where the Nile overflowed each year, turning the soil rich and dark as ink. In that sacred mud, the adepts saw a reflection of the soul, how death nourishes life and how decay conceals rebirth. They called it the art of chemia, and from it we draw our modern word alchemy. The alchemists worked by fire and patience. They knew that to command matter, one must first serve its mysteries, that to change the outer world, one must first purify the inner. And so they became monks of flame, scribes of silence, watchers of the marriage between the seen and the unseen. Their laboratories were temples, their crucibles altars, their furnaces sanctuaries where matter confessed its divinity. To them, gold was not simply wealth but perfection, the visible proof of invisible harmony. Every operation of metal mirrored an operation of the spirit. Every reaction of elements echoed the conflict of the human heart. They studied sulfur, the fiery soul, mercury, the fluid mind, and salt, the body that endures. These three formed the trinity of existence, spirit, soul, and flesh, and the great work was to reconcile them in unity. But the adepts hid their wisdom in symbols, for power without purity corrupts. They wrote in code, dragons devouring their tails, kings and queens embracing, serpents crowned with halos, rivers flowing backward through stars. Each picture was a riddle, each riddle a key. Among their treasures was the emerald tablet, a slab of green stone inscribed with words from Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great master, the bridge between gods and men. Upon that tablet were the 7 axioms of reality, the first and greatest of which declared, as above, so below, as within, so without. It means the cosmos and the human mirror one another. Whatever happens in the vast heavens happens also in the heart. To know the universe, one must look within. To heal oneself is to heal the world, for the same law moves through both, a rhythm of endless correspondence. Imagine it, an Egyptian scribe, a Greek philosopher, a Persian magus, and a wandering Hebrew mystic meeting in Alexandria, the city of light. Beneath oil lamps and incense smoke, they exchanged secrets and scriptures. They discovered that every tradition spoke of the same flame by a different name. They realized that divinity was not confined to temple walls, but woven through existence itself. Alchemy became their common tongue, a science that did not separate heaven from earth nor matter from mind. It was not superstition. It was the first physics, the first psychology, and the first theology, all bound in one sacred art. They believed that nothing is dead. Even stone, they said, sleeps, dreaming of its higher form. Even lead longs to shine. Even darkness hungers for light. They saw the universe as a living being and human consciousness as its awakening eye. To perform the work, they studied metals as mirrors of the soul, lead as the dull heaviness of ignorance, tin as the pride that imitates gold, iron as the anger that cuts both wielder and foe, copper as the desire that reflects and distorts beauty, silver as the wisdom that receives but does not radiate, and finally gold, the incorruptible, the metal that resists time, the symbol of the self fully realized. Yet to reach that sun, one must travel through darkness. The work demanded nigredo, the blackening, the destruction of illusion, then albedo, the whitening, the purification through insight, and finally rubedo, the reddening, the marriage of spirit and matter, when the heart becomes flame without consuming itself. Every furnace mirrored the human psyche. The fire they stoked outside was the same fire that burned within. They labored night and day, sometimes for decades, watching the colors change, listening to metals speak. And when they saw the first flash of red in their vessels, they knew the symbol had answered. The union was complete. They recorded their revelations in images: a lion devouring the sun, ego consuming enlightenment, a black crow rising from a skull, death transformed into wisdom, a child crowned in light, rebirth of the purified soul. Each picture was scripture, each operation a prayer. They did not chase miracles, they became them. They did not seek power over nature, they sought partnership with her. For they understood what the modern world forgets. Matter and spirit are two masks of the same dancer. When they move in harmony, the world is whole. The outer work was a veil. The true experiment happened behind the eyes. While their hands mixed metals, their minds mixed opposites. While they heated furnaces, they heated emotions. While they purified gold, they purified intention. That is the secret of their endurance. Empires fell and languages vanished, but the symbols endured because they speak directly to the architecture of consciousness. The same truths echo in your dreams tonight, only wearing new masks. Every time you face conflict and stay long enough to learn, you perform an alchemical operation. Every time you reconcile rage and tenderness within yourself, you reenact the sacred marriage of Sol and Luna. Every time you turn chaos into art, you hold the philosopher's stone in your hands. The alchemists were not magicians, they were mirrors. They saw in the cosmos the same longing that burns in us, the longing to become whole. They looked at the stars and whispered, "As you rise, may I also rise." And the stars answered through fire, through time, through you. You are the heir of their art. The furnace they tended waits in your chest. The stone they sought sleeps in your awareness. The secret they guarded still speaks in dream and symbol. Chapter 3. Jung and the Inner Alchemist. In the chamber where symbols breathe, a scholar of the soul waits by the furnace. He is not robed in miracle, only patience. He gestures to the fire and says, "Begin where you burn." They called him Jung, but in the temple of the work he is simply the witness, the one who noticed that the old art of chemia was speaking a second language, not only of metals, but of men and women, not only of crucibles, but of consciousness. He points to the vessels on the bench: shadow, persona, anima, animus, and self. These are not enemies, he says, but relations estranged by fear. Not monsters to be slain, but messengers to be heard. Not puzzles to solve, but presences to reconcile. First comes the shadow, the cellar where you stored everything too alive for polite rooms, the unsent letters, the unspent tears, the unsanctioned power, the love that did not fit the calendar. Do not banish it with moral noise. Lead is honest, it does not pretend to be sunlight. Bring it to the flame and listen. What it has hidden was never meant to stay buried. What was malignant shrinks under true heat. What is gold reveals itself by enduring. Then comes the persona, the good mask that let you pass safely through certain storms, useful, necessary, and dangerous. It kept the job, it kept the peace, it kept the banquet from breaking into truth. Jung does not tear it off in public spectacle. He folds it and sets it on the table like a tool. Wear it when the craft requires. Remove it when breath and night demand honesty. Masks are servants. Do not let them rule the house. From the edge of the firelight, two presences approach, Anima and Animus, royal envoys of the inner kingdom. Their faces are familiar and strange. One carries a vessel of water, the other a blade of law. When they contend, your life limps. When they conjoin, your life sings. Receive water without drowning. Bear the blade without wounding. Their union is not a spectacle. It is a vow spoken in the marrow where opposites learn their common tongue. Now the practice, active imagination, not fantasy, but a sober parliament of images. Close the outer door and open the inward ear. Invite the fox from your dream, the city that folded into a ring, the child who drew a door on a wall and asked you to walk through. Let them speak in the language they were born to before translation trims them into platitudes. Ask them what they want, what they bring, what they refuse. Write what they say. Answer as you are. This is how the work moves from symbol to sacrament. The threefold fire appears again. Nigredo, the blackening, where forms fail and falsehoods burn. Albedo, the whitening, where waters rinse and insight cools. And rubedo, the reddening, where soul and matter marry, and the heart becomes a hearth that does not consume itself. You have known these stages in secret. When the edifice cracked and night took your measures, that was nigredo, the honest ash. When tears washed the corners of your sight, that was albedo, clear water on old stone. When you rose and were not the same, not larger but truer, that was rubedo, the warm gold of a life integrated. Beware inflation, the counterfeit king. Visions that crown you too soon, certainties that demand a throne. The inner alchemist taps the vessel with a wooden spoon. Let the color set, she says. Humility is not a shrunken back. It is accurate weight. Carry what is yours. Return what is not. Bless the path for being longer than your pride would prefer. In this room, as above, so below becomes a working law. As within clarifies, so without steadies. As the hidden reconciles, the human reconciles. You do not fix the world through violence against yourself. You serve it by becoming a whole instrument. Then your presence, more than your argument, speaks the tongue of the tablet and is believed. Jung names the self not as a mask, but as a center, not an idol, but an axis. The living pattern that gathers the scattered, the gravity that welcomes the exile home. It is discovered by consent, not conquest, by attention, not acquisition. You reach it not by leaping past the broken rooms, but by walking through them with a lamp. In that walking, the parts remember their kinship and set a table where they once sharpened knives. Synchronicity arrives without trumpet, a sentence on a bus finishing your prayer, a book you did not intend to open revealing the exact emblem, a stranger's remark restoring a name you had half buried. Do not worship the coincidence, honor the correspondence. When inner weather and outer weather rhyme, bow and then proceed with the next clean act. Individuation is not escape from the human. It is intimacy with the human. It does not lift you above need. It teaches you to need precisely and to love with spine. It does not seal you from sorrow. It gives sorrow a chair and a task. You become not invulnerable but permeable. Wind moves through, water moves through, light abides. You stop auditioning for your own life. You start inhabiting it with priestly attention. Here the old symbols return with new breath. The lion becomes courage yoked to tenderness, strength that does not devour what it swears to guard. The crow becomes wisdom risen from endings, black wing writing psalms on the skull's white page. The child crowned in light becomes rebirth, not naivete, but innocence remade by knowledge. These are not ornaments for shelves, they are instruments for days to be handled until the handles shine. Practice is the philosopher's stone in common clothing. Keep a vow that costs you vanity. Speak one sentence that does not perform, only reveals. Sit with the feeling you rename as weather, not verdict, until it spends itself honestly and leaves the room cleaner. Bless a stranger in silence and let the blessing change your face. Write the dream before noon, read it before night, and ask what work it asks of your hands. And when despair comes, because it will, with the authority of thunder and the intimacy of rain, do not argue metaphysics with the storm. Stand under the eve of breath, count, 4 to enter, 6 to keep, 8 to release. Lay your hand on the furnace of your chest and remember, the fire is covenant, not spectacle. Speak to the darkness as to a student. I will not dismiss you, and I will not let you teach alone. The union, conjunctio, arrives quietly, like a room remembering it has windows. Opposites loosen their fists and notice the pen between them. Anger writes boundary without poison. Love writes invitation without surrendering discernment. Logos and eros exchange instruments, and the music loses nothing. It gains time. Now, inventory the work, not to boast, but to be exact. The mask has learned its seat. Front hall, not throne room. The shadow keeps a key and a ledger. Nothing of value goes missing. The critic sharpens truth, not the skin that carries it. The child tends a coal in his pocket and knows where to set it at night. The anima brings wells, the animus builds bridges. The self moves like gravity, gentle, unignorable. Do not mistake the workshop for the world. Alchemy that will not circulate is theatre. Carry the heat with you as tenderness and clarity. Wash the cup as if it answers to heaven. Listen until the story beneath the story has the courage to speak. Let your schedule learn the Sabbath of presence. Turn knowledge into bread. Offer it without sermon. This is how rubedo enters the street without losing its color. If you must have a sign, take this. The dream returned. If you must have permission, take this. The door still swings inward. Walk through with what you would rather discard. The envy that points toward a star you fear to name. The grief that means you loved in earnest. The rage that remembers injustice and requires a just hand. Lay them on the table. Turn the flame 1 degree. Wait. The world you carry will protest. It prefers speed to heat, noise to knowing. Answer with a slower gesture. Tie the shoe. Send the letter. Look into the eyes before you speak the sentence. Let your presence be grammar for the unsaid good. Gold does not shout, it convinces by weight. At last, Jung closes the book without closing the room. He does not offer immunity, he offers instruction. Do not hurry past contradiction, he says. Hold it until it yields a third. Call that third the child, the stone, the song, names for the same arrival. A life where heaven and earth sign one covenant in the handwriting of your days. When you forget, and you will, begin again with breath. Name what is here, heat in the chest, taste of iron in the mouth, the mood of the room like weather under a door. Name, separate, purify, unite the old sequence newly alive. Let the lamp be honest, let the fire be kind. Carry the ember like a vow you keep in the dark. As above, so below. As within, so without. As you become whole, the world remembers how. The inner alchemist wipes her hands on a cloth blackened by years. She does not bless you with spectacle. She nods once as if to say, enough has begun. Go, apprentice of the flame. Return when the next contradiction knocks. The door knows you now. It will open. Chapter 4. Dreams and Symbols. Night opens like a book. You close the outer eyelids and open the inward ones. Meaning wears images and time walks sideways so the soul can see itself. Do not come as a tourist of marvels, come as an apprentice of language. Dream is the mother tongue of the unconscious and symbol is her grammar. The waking mind bargains, rearranges, edits. The dreaming mind reveals, not to flatter but to reconcile what daylight separates. The road begins where the river bends into ink. A house whose rooms remember storms waits. A stair descends, not to punish but to introduce. You are guided by presences that know you by your oldest name. A serpent whose skin is handwriting, a lion with dawn in its throat, a child carrying a compass made of tears. Do not banish them with explanation. Invite them to sit and speak in their own weather. The serpent says it is not the villain of gardens, but energy before it chooses a mask. It sheds so you may shed and coils to remind you of the circle that keeps you whole. The lion answers that it is appetite trained to guard, courage yoked to tenderness, and its roar is boundary singing. The child lifts the compass and tells you it points inward and outward at once. Follow either arrow and you will arrive at the other. Jung taught the old art to listen again, to read serpent and lion as pages in a single book. He called the dream a royal road, not to escape, but to return. Active imagination becomes your lamp and chair. You do not plunder the image for trophies, but ask, what do you want of me? And ask again when silence pretends to be enough. Symbols return like seasons because you have not yet harvested them. The sea appears vast, maternal, perilous, the collective unconscious rolling under the dock of your ribs. You wade until the water names your fear and leaves it floating. A mandala rises on the surface, a circle with 4 gates, east for beginning, west for ending, north for memory, south for seed, and you stand at the center as the gates open toward each other. Another night brings a tower, a stone ribcage holding the wind. You climb past windows that look into other lives, the scholar who traded joy for clever weather, the lover who made a shrine of hunger, the warrior who forgot to lay his armor down. On the roof, a black bird waits, the crow from the old books, Death's archivist. It tilts its head and offers a quill. You take it, and the wind signs your name. Do not mistake symbol for decoration. It is not a costume, but a function, the way meaning condenses into matter. In Dream, the function presents itself in disguises until you agree to host it in daylight. Host the serpent as renewal, the lion as guardianship, the child as a new covenant with life. Host water as feeling that will not be silenced, the tower as perspective that refuses flattery, the crow as truth that blesses endings. How to read without violence. Begin with reverence and context, your season, your hunger, your vow. A symbol is a mirror that does not flatter, it shows the face beneath the face. Ask 3 questions. What is its mood? What is its motion? What does it want to change? Mood is weather, motion is grammar, change is meaning. Write what answers and read it aloud to the lamp. A city of signs collects in your chest. Dream gathers them into a single emblem and sets it on your table. You do not solve it, you serve it. The next day you knock where you said you would. The next night the emblem returns changed. Now the underworld proper, the Negredo of sleep. You descend without lantern, guided by texture. Here the mask cannot follow. It is too interested in applause to love the dark. Shadows breathe at shoulder height. Duties neglected. They ask for bread, not worship. You feed them with attention and they stop stealing from the pantry of your days. Albedo arrives like a shallow lake at dawn. The waters are exact, rinsing exaggeration from fear and perfume from longing, until what remains is cool and clear enough to drink. Rubedo glows from the coals of a hearth you thought the world had taken. It had not. It was waiting for you to bring home the figures you disowned and seat them in a circle where heat teaches courtesy. In this work, animals teach cycles and courage, places teach thresholds, weather teaches proportion. Then come the masks with crowns, archetypes older than cities, the mother who feeds and sometimes forgets to stop, the father who names and sometimes forgets to listen, the trickster who loosens your grip on false law, the wise one who turns silence into bread. Welcome them as ancestors and teachers, not rulers. When they possess you, you become a sermon. When you befriend them, you become a person. You wake before dawn with symbols cooling on the anvil of the tongue. The temptation is to chase them back into fire or explain them into ash. Do neither. Write them. Ink is mercy for meanings that would otherwise evaporate. Draw the circle that keeps visiting, even if your hand shakes. Name the river, even if you fear its flood. Give the child a room in your house and a chore to do. Let the lion guard the threshold rather than the throne. Now the bridge from interior to world, a symbol realized, becomes an ethic. If water has taught you feeling, practice gentleness with spine. If the tower has taught you perspective, practice saying, I don't know. If the crow has taught you endings, finish the small and the hard and bury what is over with a blessing and a date. If the mandala has centered your days, keep rhythms that keep the center alive, work that warms, rest that restores, relations that increase comprehension. You take your symbols to the street without proclamation. They change your gait before they change your speech. You look longer before deciding. You decide slower before judging. You judge less and discern more. The world feels less like a battlefield for your righteousness and more like a field where your attention grows food. At the market, you notice how colors converse. A child reaches for a serpent on a book cover and you tell a story of renewal. At a crosswalk, the lion clears its throat and you say no without venom. On a bench, the crow sits beside you while you draft the letter you avoided. You sign. Dream and day exchange ambassadors. From waking, you bring a vow back to sleep, to stop lying to yourself about where it hurts. From sleep, you bring a symbol back to waking, a ring that is also a river, a promise that keeps moving. You wear it in your demeanor. People do not know why you are easier to stand beside. They only know their shoulders drop when you enter the room. Practice becomes liturgy. Bless the bed as threshold, the desk as altar. Bless the mouth before it speaks and the hands before they work. Let blessing arrange attention. When conflict finds you, and it will, you consult the parliament of images. The serpent advises you to shed the sentence you sharpened for victory. The child says to speak the simple truth and stop there. The lion says to keep the boundary even if no applause arrives. The crow says to let this ending be clean and not salt it with pride. You obey the counsel. The argument cools enough to reveal the original wound. You tend that, and the day returns to its work. There are nights without images, blank vellum where the soul rests its hand. Do not panic, not all seed must sprout in view. There are nights of too many images, a flood you cannot carry. Do not drown. Choose one vessel and ride it to shore. Tomorrow choose another. Wholeness does not demand hurry, it demands fidelity. Toward the end of the watch, the mandala opens as a city seen from above, streets like sutures and lights like prayers from window to window. You stand at the center as a citizen. As within, so without, says the road you cannot see and yet obey. Your private reconciliations become public courage. Your secret mercies become policies that keep children fed and elders less alone. You do not announce this. You show up with hands trained by symbols, and the work becomes bread. For accuracy, not pride, you take inventory. You turned a nightmare into a conversation. You let an old mask retire with gratitude. You asked a second question before temper auditioned. You finished a letter and began a vow. You buried one ritual and planted another. Your presence has become a room others trust with their names. A final instruction before dawn erases the chalkboard. Do not colonize your dreams with theory. Visit them with hospitality. Bring bread, a chair, a pen. Listen until the symbol changes shape in your hands. That change is the sign that waking may proceed. And when you cannot remember the night's counsel, remember the days. Be kind, be precise, be slow to harm. These three turn almost any emblem into an ethic. The lamp dims but does not die. You rise and make the bed with priestly attention, drink water as if returning a message to the river, and step into the corridor of hours with a coal the child entrusted. It warms, it does not burn. Outside, the world rehearses its old chaos. Inside, the symbols keep their appointments. You are not spared the weather, you are taught to carry it honorably. Listen, traveler of shadow and light. Dream is not an escape ladder, but a bridge. Symbol is not a riddle to hoard, but a tool to share. Take what the night gave and build a daytime that wastes less of what is holy. Keep the circle open, keep the gates named. When someone asks what it all means, do not lecture. Offer your presence and a practice they can do before noon. The great work continues, through water under stone, through images that refuse to be small, through acts that look ordinary from a distance and luminous from within. As above, so below. As within, so without. Let the bridge hold. Let the morning read what the night has written. Let your life become legible to love. Closing note, the ember remains. When the last bell fades and the air settles, what endures is not the sound but the space it opened. The great work was never in the furnaces or the symbols alone. It lived in the attention you offered them, the listening that refined you while you thought you were refining gold. You have walked the arc from fire to dream, from the visible to the invisible, from the seeker's question to the servant's silence. Now the circle closes only to widen again. Carry the work gently. It is not a doctrine to defend, but a presence to embody. Let your smallest gestures be precise, your words deliberate, your mercy unannounced. The true philosopher's stone is not a secret to guard. It is a way of seeing that turns every moment toward wholeness. Keep tending the ember. It remembers you.